Let's call the meeting to order. I don't see any public. So our first item is considering approval of the minutes. I sent in some changes in advance that I think you all saw that have been incorporated into the version that is in our paper package. Are there any other changes to the minutes? Okay, would someone like to move approval of said minutes? I will move approval.
I wasn't here.
Minute, no, I mean, of the minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Not confirmed.
Right. Minutes of August 29. Sam, you want to
Sure.
second? Okay, Sam. All those in favor, you can vote.
I'll vote.
I'll vote. Okay, great. Minutes out of the way. Hey, David, do you want to talk
The handbook.
about the employee handbook?
Yeah, so what you have in the draft is not received a full legal review at this point. Jen and Sam had it, I think, probably initially a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember. We have, it's based on a template from Employers Council, which came to us. Then Jennifer and I and Antonia heavily reworked to incorporate things that we had heard from staff or that we gathered through the employee survey. Jennifer did a major lift on a lot of policy and some of the legal related stuff, which we're still working on. But what you have now is a draft of the document. I think most of the tenets of the employee handbook are there. It has had, at this point, in addition to Sam and Jen, Antonia, Jennifer and I think we had 11 other readers. 3 of them were BMEA. The others were all of the leadership team, and then some frontline staff, librarian staff, and a middle level manager. And so a lot of really great feedback. The document is much improved from having so many different readers up until this point. Like I said, there are still some legal questions that we don't have answered. I think they're probably, I don't want to say minor, but I suspect that we haven't had any alarm bells go off. A number of professional HR people who have read it as well, Employers Council. And as I said, it originated from them, the template and the basic outline and things. There were some things that we were looking into around workplace violence, drugs, and guns in the workplace, which none of us were really quite familiar with. So we wanted to make them sound a little bit more, a little better. I think there was a lot of improvements with regard to an attempt to neutralize gender throughout the document. That was on the part of the staff. But the meat of it's there, and I would welcome your feedback. I welcome your feedback in a couple of different ways. One, any input that you might have in the document, and then secondarily, the fact that we've had 14 readers is great, or 15 readers or whatever is great. But it's also now being discussed widely among staff with only partial knowledge and a desire to see the real thing or the full thing and not rely on innuendo and things. And so I don't know. I feel like my initial assumption was that we would wait until we had legal review to share it with the staff, but I don't know if that's really necessary at this point because it is a draft. And we can inform them that we are still awaiting legal review and that has yet to be done. We welcome their feedback because I don't think they're going to have feedback on the legal questions. I think they're going to have feedback on the overall tenet.
I think the legal review will be done in time for them to see it before the 12 meeting.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Jennifer has been back and forth with the legal people. There's another call scheduled on Friday.
Base suggests maybe not.
Well, but
So look at it this way, right? So the staff, if you look at it from the point of view of the staff, there's 100 and some people, right? They know it's out. They know people have read it. They probably are even aware that it's up for legal review, but they also have this anticipation that they're going to have one opportunity on September 10th to meet in an open meeting with board members who are there going to provide their feedback to. And so they would like not to discuss whether or not it's legal to carry a gun to library. They would like to discuss with you time off and what they think of the sick leave policy and stuff like that. Like those are the things that I suspect that staff would like to have time to review this stuff prior to the 12th to discuss. They're not going to say like, this is not, if they say it's not legal and they're a lawyer, then we'll probably send it to Employers Council and say, could you correct this? But I don't think that's going to happen. So
Just to get one thing out of the way, I assume that you're gonna have an editor go through to clean up the remaining typos and that kind of stuff that are in here, because we don't need to worry about that level.
no, you don't need to worry about typos. I mean, there have been a lot of reviews of it, and thank you to all those people who did submit. If you notice a large grammatical error, I know there are a few ellipses where the sentence just ends without ending. And those things are, due for correction, but I think the document is a work in progress. Jennifer has worked on it extensively from the time this was sent to you on Thursday, or sent for your packet on Thursday of last week. So there's a lot more work. So it's changing, but not substantively.
Is our legal review in the room?
No. It's Employers
It's
Council.
Employer Council, okay.
Yeah, so Employers Council, Employers Council gave us the template.
This guy's.
We
I
reworked
looked and I like, I wondered, the body like, it's like, I don't
We
know.
reworked the template, but didn't really rework substantially some things that were in there that were legal, right? So the places where we did revolved around violence, guns at work, some stuff like that. We were hoping to get changes on, reached out to several people about what we can and cannot do, and also to Employers Council. But Employers Council has a formal process wherein we send the document back. They do legal review. They tell us that takes an expected 3 weeks. It will be 2 this week and then 3 by the 12th, but that's no guarantee that it's going to be back to us by then.
Are you asking for our guidance on whether to release it prior to release?
I would like you to say one way or another if you feel comfortable. My inclination is yes.
Yeah, I'm fine.
inclination is to share with them.
I mean, it's in the public document.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a draft. It's still undergoing legal review, but here it is. Yeah.
Um, it's much more comprehensive than I was expecting compared to my company's.
Well, and I do welcome any feedback that you might have around that. I mean, it is a fairly comprehensive document, I think. Jen Yee was the first to suggest, and then we've had subsequent suggestions, to pull some of this out. And I think we intend to do so from it being in the final document, primarily around rewards and recognition. That may have already been done by the time you received your package. And there may be some other areas where we reduce the amount that's in here and then take it to either a practice where it's not a policy or something that we're gonna, it's, that's that, Jennifer?
You called all that.
So it may be reduced somewhat, but any other thoughts on the document?
I definitely think you ought to release it. I mean, my impression as I read it, oh my gosh, this is so bureaucratic and kind of intimidating. I don't know if there's a way to make the language more welcoming or, it doesn't seem in keeping with the culture of the language. That's good. I felt like I was back with the federal government again, and maybe all employee handbooks are just written that way and that's life. But that was my only comment. I certainly didn't have any comments.
Wrapping up like 50 policies into a single document, which a lot of companies have separate.
Are there any specific things that you would like to have?
Are we gonna eventually vote on this or no?
No, it's not something you vote on, but I think we will, we do want to finalize this A version prior to the budget. The budget will currently scheduled at the end of October. So we promised the staff that they would have at least 3 weeks of input. I want to hold to that. And there's an open channel online. There'll be opportunity. We've talked to all the supervisors. The supervisors got a draft of this as well soon after you did. And we've encouraged them to give staff the time to discuss and read and talk about it with both their peers and their supervisors.
So let's just clarify, though, we will be voting on the substance of what is contained in this, because that will be in the compensation benefit package. So we don't vote on the handbook per se, but
All of the answers.
Well, that
All
was
of the decisions that you make.
How much of this is tied to when you get the compensation and benefits package? So we might have to make some changes based on what the package comes out at.
Can you give a specific example, Doug?
Well, I don't know, like, if there's details around short-term and long-term disability, how that's taken. We might need to reference the policies from the disability insurance company. Okay, well, yeah,
They
I don't
sent
know.
some language and we plugged it in and then.
okay, that's what I kind of meant, okay. Like, or if there was,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, other,
It will be an education, I think,
Yeah.
for all of us, and it has been for me. You know, I knew that short-term disability is essentially, you contract with a service to determine eligibility, but it is basically a self-insurance. Right? The library district will just pay all that time somebody is on short-term disability. The same is true, obviously, for long-term disability, up until a point, and that's where you set a stop loss, right? So at some point, then there is a period where the insurance company really picks up. But like with all of our leaves, even with the shared benefit leave, with the compassionate leave, the expense is an expense that the library district assumes, and it's just a form of self-insurance. You have the policy in place so that then what you do is you outsource those decisions so that it doesn't resort to me or to Jennifer or the head of HR having to make decisions like, you're not sick enough for short-term disability or whatever. That is done by a professional health industry company. They make those decisions, and then should they put somebody on short-term disability, the bill for fully paying them for 6 months of time that they're away from work is a bill that the library district pays. It's not some benevolent insurance company that somehow then just picks up the dollars and decides, well, pay for this employee for the next 6 months. Yeah. So that is a complicating factor. We have expanded significantly the definition of what counts for sick leave. We have built in a couple of different leave programs around a compassionate leave and a sick leave, shared sick leave bank to account for people who, which I guarantee you there will be 3 to 5 of every year, who have to use, right? Like they will have an injury, an illness, surgery, a broken arm, whatever it is, but then they're going to have to take advantage of maybe short-term disability and also perhaps one of the other extended leave programs. John.
So I think to go back to your question, this handbook right now is keyed to the draft as you see it in the presentation. I assume we're going to walk through.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
Okay,
and so if there are changes, obviously they'll be made in sync.
okay, that's, I mean, very,
Yeah, it's a little bit horse in the car to go in at the same time.
Yeah, so September 12th, if you want to go jump to that presentation for September 12th, Sam and Jen and I will do together. Sam's going to lead off kind of with a basic statement about the board's
It's after those, so things got a little bit out of order in the packet. So
Yeah.
it's after those illustrations of budget.
56.
yeah, it's page 56 through page 60, I think 68. Yeah, 58. So Sam will lead off, talk basically about the board's disposition, much of what he said last week, and then go through some of the overarching things which the handbook attempts to cover, which are main concerns of staff, is compensation, retirement, healthcare, and time off. And we'll briefly those. Jen will pick it up from there and talk about some of the basic principles that guided the decisions around putting together the packet, and then has proposed putting a comparison kind of chart between the city and BPL that would show a plus and minuses. This is where things are improved or the same, or in some cases better, or in some cases worse. And so that would be the next slide.
I thought the chart was very, very helpful. You have a typo in it.
That's my fault entirely.
Overall package comparison, third line, health savings contribution is a listing.
I'm sorry, which one?
Third one down.
Table, yeah. Health savings account.
I think it's spelled right.
Jim did.
I had a question on this, pluses and minuses, sorry. The paid leave cash value, I guess that has a plus because they get paid for it. Like if they don't use it, it's up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
And then I guess the city won't, you lose it if you don't use it or something, or,
Yeah, that's right. Right. So sick leave with the city has zero cash value.
Okay.
If you were to leave the organization, so the paid leave cash value is a typical kind of calculation. Ours is higher than any of our competing libraries, very in line with the university and in line with Denver Public Library. It's higher than what the city provides.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the amount of value that you can cash out should you leave the organization. And that happens at any time, right? You could be here 2 years, cash out all of your accrued vacation time, or be here for 30 and do the same.
okay. And then, the compassionate leave, oh, I'm sorry, the sick leave accrual hours, it's a minus because, they don't have unlimited sick leave.
They have unlimited accrual and they earn less on an annual basis. So
Yeah.
this is probably one of the primary differences that they would see. So the two big differences that the staff will see is we're separating performance from pay, right? So pay is a more along the lines of a COLA increase. It's just a flat, everybody gets the same amount of money or percentage of money, whatever it happens to be, to start out with the district. And we're recommending that that's the same amount of money. That's that concept that we covered last week, which I guess you weren't here, which is pay leveling, right? So you take the total sum of the amount of money that's available for raises and you even split it among all employees. So for instance, as an example, what it used to here is you determine it's $400,000. You have 100 employees, everybody gets $4,000. What that means to the lowest earner is maybe an 8 or a 10% increase. What that means to the highest earner is probably around a 3% increase.
I was talking about the sick leave and accrual.
Yeah, so the second big leave is the second big change is sick leave accrual.
Okay,
So the city allows for unlimited accrual of sick leave, and you earn 112 hours annually. The recommendation that we're putting forward is 60 hours annually with no accrual. The banks are intended to take care of those people who have an extended sickness beyond 60 hours. Just for reference, I mean, it is based off data. It's not a made up number. It's the state requires 48 hours minimum for up to 48 hours, depending upon how many hours you work.
right,
We increased that to 60 based on the fact that on average, for the past 3 years, the amount of sick time that people use is 60 hours. The average amount of the American worker is 59.7 hours per year in sick time. The median number for the library is less than 45 at this point. So more than half the employees, 50% of the employees, and this is true year in and year out, use about 10% of the sick leave. The top 10 to 15%, 10% use about 35% of the overall sick leave. And then there's another group of about 15 that then make up another 30%. So it's really 65% of the sick leave is used by 25% of the organization. And in almost all cases, that is a result of known illnesses, right? So they have surgery, they have a broken leg, whatever it is, they are known illnesses. In some instances, there's not a known illness. And so it corresponds with the high use of sick leave, which doesn't have a determined factor, right? So we don't, I assume they're sick. I'm assuming that they're just not disclosing that either to their supervisor or to someone else, maybe not to themselves. And that this plan would require that they would come forward to HR, say, I have this illness, I need the time off. And then they could be granted increments of 3 weeks of 22 days of paid time using the compassionate leave bank or apply for short-term or long-term disability to get on that plan. The city's plan with unlimited accrual also requires you have to exhaust all of your leave, all of your vacation time and all of your sick time to qualify for short-term disability. So no big surprise, I have not had a short-term disability claim in at least the last 6 years. We've had 2 long-term disability claims, both of which were denied. And so frequently when staff say, like, when you hear somebody say, I have this huge bank of sick time and I'm looking at it as insurance policy, it's on the assumption that that's all it's going to take care of, right? Like they're going to have to use all that time in order to ever qualify for short-term disability, and probably their long-term disability may be denied. And so they have no experience really with any kind of short-term, long-term disability. So I think both of those programs, as well as the compassionate leave program, will cover for everyone who has an illness and even a prolonged illness, because ultimately it is a self-insurance. And I don't have nobody could there was not a single HR person that we talked to or another library that could say like they remember ever having a policy or having heard of a policy like the city's sick leave accrual program with unlimited accrual and the need to exhaust all of that leave before you become eligible for other services.
Hey, David, before you, I think you should add a row in this table right below sick leave that says like access to short-term and long-term disability or something that, so that is because that seems like a really key piece of the sick leave policy change is understanding what people get, even though the volume of hours is lower.
Jen, my brain was going the same way.
Yeah,
I think we need to have a way of explaining that right now, my security, if I'm working for the city, is accruing as many hours as I can on my own. That's shifting to my still getting hours that are normally what I get, but then there's a collective pool that is being accrued that everyone has access to, plus short-term disability and compassionate. So there's, I mean, they're in a much better position, but I think we need to spell that out.
That's a good way of saying it, Johnny, because it is, and that will be a concern. I guarantee you that there are people, and it's people mostly of my generation who have no interest or desire to share anything about their health with any other person than themselves, right? And so this is based on the idea that people will, so that collectively the organization can respond rather than allowing for an unlimited non-cash value leave, which occasionally leads to unexplained series of extreme absence with no known health issues.
Yeah, but in my experience, the short term and long, when you take that, you deal with the company and you don't really have to even disclose that to your employer.
No, they can tell the company, they say.
About that, and right now, there's a whole bunch of sick leave hours that are being accrued that just go off into the stratosphere. Now those are going to go into a collective bank that people can access. You're actually kind of capturing
Yeah.
some of that.
I'm sorry to ask these questions. I just want to make sure that we have an explained answer. Explain to you guys.
It's no doubt, like it's a significant change.
Yeah.
That and separating pay from performance, which is what they've been used to all along. I don't think there's any concept, otherwise, though the staff did ask for, COLA increases, they never received. We did forego merit increases in 1 year. And so this plan that we have, those two things are nevertheless a major change.
Jen, I understand we have you to thank for this table. Thank you very much. This is really, really helpful, I think.
So related, before we leave that, just to add a S after 3 floating holidays, after holiday on that table, to add an S. Yeah. And then I wondered why we didn't have disability leave as one of the benefits.
You mean in the chart?
Yeah.
We will add it. I just an oversight.
Okay.
Jen sent me this list. I just plugged it in and think I did everything, but I didn't. I could very well have missed short and long-term disability.
Okay. And then just in terms of the table heading, add a D to BPL. So it identifies the district.
And I think that the last line, which is the sick leave bank, should be moved up with the sick leave hours and the short-term disability. So you see all of those in one place.
I'm sorry.
So the very last line is sick leave bank. I think you should group sick leave up with the sick leave bank and the short-term disability together in the table so they can see them with one eye.
Okay.
And also the expanded definition of sick leave use. So all of the sick leave things should be clustered.
That means you'll have yes and no's in the middle of the pluses, minuses, but that's okay.
Yeah, I
okay.
think so. So the expanded definition of sick leave use really is a broadening, concept of what family is, right? So that's touched on later in the thing. That is to the extent that we could, and where we cannot, there are federally programs like, so we're state funded programs. We cannot change the definition of family, although the definition of family is different from state to state. We have to stick to whatever the guidelines are. And so with sick leave, compassionate leave, we've expanded the concept of what family is to include. Basically, anybody who has a vested emotional, financial, or personal connection to you, including a pet. So there are provisions for a much broader understanding of what things that may have been denied in terms of the use of sick leave. So we may in fact see those averages go up. That is what I fully expect to see. I fully expect to see the median perhaps go up because it's such a broader definition of what would count as sick leave.
So one more question on this table. We don't have anything in this table about compensation. I realize the next slide is compensation. Is there something we can do to show a comparison between compensation with the city and now? Either with this program and the city's program. And of course, that gets into the question about the living wage thing, which I don't know if you want to talk about that, David. But
Well, the compensation tax, right? And I was going to talk about it in this slide. We could easily put it into the slide. I don't know that,
I honestly don't know if there's a way to compare it. It may be that it's, too complicated to do.
They're two different things,
So
right?
That was a question, true.
So I think it is complicated. I don't know what people know or don't know, but the city, basically, all organizations do this, right? Bonuses or benefits or raises, all that stuff is a number that typically an organization knows the year before, right? They know it way in advance of actually granting. There's an amount of money that they assume that they're going to spend and they may have available. If they don't have it available, in the case of a pandemic, then no one gets it, right? But so you always know. And then the way the city does performance metrics is they know also how the ratings fell out the previous year. So we can see who did well, who did good, who did outstanding. And so they base the percentages that people will get in an increase off of how that curve goes. So if the curve is a bell curve, you're going to see a lot more money, higher amount of money in the top. But if the curve is the head of a whale, which is what it typically has been for the city for the last 3 or 4 years, then it mitigates the amount of increase that you're able to get. Everybody, if you do a good job, you get 3%. If you do an outstanding job, you get 3.2. And so the difference for a frontline staff member between doing an outstanding performance and just doing their job is basically probably less than 10 cents an hour. That's the difference between outstanding. And so what's the motivation for doing your job well? It's certainly not performance measures. So that's not performance pay. So our plan is to equally distribute the money across everyone. The percentages that we're currently looking at, and I'm not willing to commit to a number yet because we don't know all the parts of the budget, but the number that we're currently looking at is roughly a 5% across the board. That will lead to a significant increase in funding for the lower level staff, up to potentially a 10% increase, wildly different than 3 or 3.2. So it's partly to move the needle on what I believe it is the intent of the board to do, and certainly it is the intent of the personnel subcommittee, is to move the bottom of the organization up to a more of a living wage within the organization, and within the city of Boulder. They've probably seen a lot more data on that than you have, or that I ever intend to bring. But just to let the cat out of the bag, like the median wage currently is $53,000 a year, full-time employment with the library. The average wage is about 60. So by doing this pay leveling for a couple of years, we move that, whatever the bonus is that you guys decide, whether it's 5% or 4% or whatever it is, we'll move that needle so that it would go from 53 median wage to probably closer to 60, but not quite. Over the course of a 2-year time frame. So it is a substantially bigger increase than what the city has been able to provide using the merit system that they currently have. That will be a difference, a change.
So in terms of this table, is there a way of saying, the city, what I'm hearing is the city uses a performance-based system, and we are using something that's more like a COLA.
Yeah, it's way more like a COLA.
So, something that just brings it down into a very simple way. I want to know what I'm making. I don't want to know how you do it with all your charts and all that sort of thing behind the scenes. I just want to know, how it's affecting me. I think if you can think about how that might be able to be expressed.
I don't know how to express it more cleanly than everybody gets the same amount.
That's fine.
You can tell me what I'm happy.
Everyone gets the same percentage versus tied to performance. That's a big difference, and that's
Not the same percentage. We're talking about everybody gets the same amount of money. Yeah. So me to a shelver that started yesterday, we all get the same amount. And that is the stance that I believe that we brought forward to the
Yeah.
personnel subcommittee, and they,
I'm not questioning that at all. I think it's great. I'm just trying to figure out a way to simplify it.
yeah, so it's the way it says now is divided equally among all staff. Do we have to, should we say that everybody gets the same amount of money? Would that be better?
I'm still looking at the table. I'm still trying to find something in the table that we can say about compensation, because this is the overall.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were on the next slide.
Yeah, we should say overall benefits package maybe for this
Yeah,
table.
you need to clarify, because
Yeah.
compensation doesn't show up in here, and it's kind of a glaring omission. So either this is overall benefits without compensation, and compensation is the next, or some way of putting that in there. That's all I was stuck on.
I'll look to Sam and Jen.
Talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
The next page is compensation. We briefly explain what pay leveling is. You have a total sum of money, which is what everybody does. And instead of awarding percentages, which 5% for me is very different than what 5% is for the shelter that started yesterday, by a magnitude of 3 times, right? So instead, we're proposing that everybody gets the same amount of money, which for them means a higher percentage increase for that shelter who started yesterday than it does for me, but it's what we need to do if we are to rapidly redress the fact that the median wage within the library is $53,000 a year. More than half staff make less than that.
So having a bullet that in here somewhere that addresses that we are trying to bring people up. Low wage would be helpful. That doesn't appear here right now.
Well, I think without saying it out loud, everyone will be able to recognize themselves in the table, right? In the table at the bottom, employee A, annualized pay $50,000 a year, or hourly employee at $20 an hour. Most of them can see exactly what that means for that. There are, a handful of people who make $99,000 or more. It's still, it's still at 4% if this number were to hold. And that's just meant to be an example. But that's better than what they've received from the city for the past probably 8 years at 4%. So that's great. That would be awesome. I think in this case, for almost everybody in the organization, it's a win. I'd say 95% of the organization, they're going to look at it as a win. And those 5 that don't see it as a win strongly support this plan. So they're all in favor of actually addressing that wage gap. We're saying here that you're proposing this increase for 24 to 25. That would, if we decide to do that, and that's obviously a decision you'll have to make, that would move that needle on median and average wage significantly. Right? So the median wage would go probably from 53 to around $59,000 a year, close to 60. The average wage would go from 60 to above 72. That would make a monumental kind of difference, and that would be a bigger leap than I've seen in the entire decade that I've been in the median and average wage. As I sent out to the personnel subcommittee last Friday, the city manager's budget came out. The city manager is recommending a new budget that has a $22.44 minimum wage. That is a 26% increase from where it is currently. That where the city is, that hits probably about 150 people when we're gone. If we were still there, it would probably be close to 200 people, I'm guessing, at our current level. So I ran the numbers, which I shared with Sam and Jen yesterday, but we haven't had a chance to talk to them. So at build out, right, at the end of 2024, we've hired all the new people. We implemented this pay leveling system. We will have 90 or 91 hourly employees. 18 of those at the end of 2024 would not make $22.44. So roughly whatever that is, 15 to 20%. By the end of by the time we got to January of 2026, the second year of this plan, all but 4 would have made it to that $22.44 minimum wage. The issue that we experienced when the city first initiated the living wage and jumped it to $16.73 is wage compression. And if you're not familiar with the concept, it has been covered widely over the last 3 years, and it is covered widely as a source of problem with retention, right? So when you move only the bottom up without similarly adjusting everyone else, you wind up with a person who is a first day shelver who's making maybe 5 or 10% less than a frontline public service staff who's dealing with accounts and people coming and talk to them and complaints and people who are having troubles in all sorts of ways. You're like, they're making 5% less than those people. And those people all wonder like, why are you paying this new person and all of these beginning level employees the same amount of money as me when I've known that I was worth a lot more to the organization all this time? And if we jump, the pay leveling does get us there within 2 years. It does not get us there in January 2024, but by January 2025, we are 99% there. Should you choose to go with 2244, we can easily manage it, right? It's probably the cost of bringing those 18 people up on an annual basis. I didn't run specific numbers, but it's probably in the wheelhouse of about $50,000 a year. So manageable. The issue
A year or just 1 year? Could be
for 1 year.
doing it once.
Yeah, for 50,000. Well, but then every year subsequent, you would pay, you're paying at a higher rate. The issue with it is that we don't anticipate, and I would have a hard time running calculations for you, although I can try if you want to do this, I will. Because with wage compression and wage compression being a key factor in all the HR stuff about like why employees are disgruntled right now. It's going to mean a cascading effect throughout the organization over the course of the next 4 years, where we are simply having to raise every single work group salary in order to deal with the fact that you're only 5 or 10% difference in salary. And we did do that adjustment. It took us about 4 or 5 years as a result of the city increasing the living wage to 1673 out of the gate. Another part that does concern me, and I don't know how strongly I feel about this, but if you're a beginning level shelver at Louisville, Longmont, or Lafayette libraries, you make $12 or $12.50, and so we would be paying fully $10 an hour more. I don't know how other places would deal with that. Maybe they don't, that doesn't concern them either, but it is a significant gap in wage. This is where we started. Like the bottom is paid pretty well. The next level up that we have is the public service staff, and that makes up literally 35% of the organization, something like that. They are paid at a higher rate than almost every single other library in the state, but it's not marginally higher than $22.44. The starting wage is, as a benchmark, we're doing very well. But that benchmark would have to go up even more in order to accommodate a $22.44 wage, I believe. So it's something that we're going to have to think through. I know that staff's going to ask you about it on the 12th. I mean, it came out in the city manager's budget on Friday, and literally, I don't even know how many staff prior to this year read the city manager's budget, but there was a lot of talking going on that day because that was a notable feature, right? Notable feature that something like $500,000 the city's going to spend.
No, David summarized it well. I say I've been here 3 or 4 years. I'm making $25 an hour. Suddenly the bottom came really close to me. I'm not sure what to do, honestly, with that, other than the phased in approach you took when the city raised it to 16.
It took us a while.
Yeah.
And there was some disgruntlement. I'm not sure we lost people over it, but perhaps we did. It was a lot of talk, a lot of dissension. And pay compression is obvious. You see it in all kinds of organizations, but it's happening especially now with the pandemic and inflation and the difficult hiring market that organizations, aside from libraries all across the country, are seeing. And so what you do is you offer incoming employees like all these benefits and a higher level salary, which then you're asking the person who's been there 10 years to train that employee to do their job, and they're making the exact same amount of money. And the person's thinking like, what the hell? I've been asking for a raise for 5 years.
See ya.
Yeah.
So I don't
David?
know. Yes.
Are the people who would be disgruntled, would it be all 35% of that middle tier of frontline staff, or would it be like the lower part of a large range? Like what, so 18 people are affected by the raise in the minimum wage. How many people would be affected or disgruntled by the compression? Is it that whole group?
Well, we have 90 hourly employees. I'd say probably a dozen of those are at various stages of administration and clerk and stuff like that. So they're being paid at a higher wage than 24, but Again, they're probably a 25% difference from the 22, 40.
How many people? We know we've got.
It's the bulk.
Affected by one, is it 35, is it 50?
50 or 60. It's literally all of the frontline staff. There's no.
So they're
frontline
all
staff.
about the same. They're all about it the same. There isn't like a big range between the least experienced non-minimum wage person and the most experienced non-minimum wage person.
No, with the city, so they're all currently union. It's a grade
Okay.
that's great.
Okay.
So it's a BMEA A, a BMEA B, and then a
Okay.
BMEA D, right? And so the BMEA
Yeah.
D is literally 35% of the organization. That is all the staff that you encounter on the floor in all likelihood. A lot of the staff in some of the back offices that do processing and stuff like that, they're all in that one grade. And then there's a group of BMEA shelvers, the entry level job, the very beginning, that makes up, I don't know, Jen, 25 people, 30 people, I don't know. But all combined, they make up that 90 hourly employees. It's probably, so there's a large body of them under, but some of them already will make over 2244 as a result of this initial pay leveling concept. So a lot of people will jump above it as a result of that. There's 18 that will not. And some of those are just prospective positions, right? They haven't even been hired yet. They're the shelvers that are going to work at Novo. So, do we bring them in at 2244? Or do we bring them in at 18, or what we had projected was around $20? That was the projected entry level wage for a shelving job. Was after the pay leveling, it would basically be $20 for entry level jobs. But we haven't talked about it extensively, what the entry level minimum wage is. And if you guys want to have that discussion, I think we probably should do so now before October. And I think you'll probably hear about it in the September 12th meeting. The sentiment.
Do we expect that the lower level, the shelving staff, would be equally disgruntled because they're not being offered the same wage they would get for the city?
Well, the city won't have any shelving jobs, so no. They don't have that job.
So we can't, if we do that, we can also say that they're getting paid better than the city. Can we?
No, we have 3 overlapping positions that would be affected. And they would be affected by 9 cents. At the beginning of 2024, it's 9 cents an hour. So there's 3 that are overlapping positions.
Good evening. The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
Buenas noches. La biblioteca se cerrará en 15 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
So I needs to be asking more specific questions, right? So all 15, there are 18 people at January 2024 who will not be making $22.44. 15 of those 18 people are library-specific jobs. It is a shelver. The city will not have that job in 2024. 3 others are overlapping positions. They would be making 9 cents an hour less than $22.44. So that is the actuality, right? There's a couple other people where it's a dime. There are other people that it's $2, right? It's like $2. It'll take them another year to get to the point. And therefore, who it's beyond that amount. So it would take them, even after 2 years at our current level, what we had planned, they would only enter it in the 3rd year. So probably we changed the minimum wage, but I don't know that we changed it to 22.44. And I don't know how that will be received. I have no idea. I mean, your question, Jen, is a good one. How will the people feel? Like, will it only be the 18 that feel it? Will it be everyone that feels it? Will it be everybody that feels like, I want everybody to be making 22.44? Will they say like, gosh, we would have been better staying with the city if we could have only stayed with the city? We should have done that. I don't know what the answer to that question is.
I think the irony of all of this, of course, is that the city wouldn't be doing this if they weren't losing a chunk of employees, because these employees leaving makes it more financially possible for them to bring up the rest of them. So it's an odd situation. Well, are you guys comfortable talking about this more and then coming back with a recommendation, to the Chamber Subcommittee. And
Yeah, I mean, I welcome anybody's initial thoughts to bring to that conversation. I mean, I think I do think it's going to be a complex sort of thing we need to recommend. So I'm curious if anybody has any experience with this at their own organizations or from all, your various board services. There's a lot of board service experience here. I don't know if anyone has walked into this before, but I'm curious what people's initial thoughts are.
I think the wage compression issue is a real concern. I mean, I've been in organizations where that happens. So, short of rerunning the entire package so that we're starting at a different base and going up, I'm not even sure how we would do it. I think it may be important to compare to the other libraries, even as much as the city. But yeah, I don't know myself where I would land on this.
Have we captured, like, looking at the overall package comparison, the sort of added value of the district's package over the city in a sense? With the
With dollar financial
Yeah.
value to the
Yeah.
employee, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
because I mean, I just remember my old days working for the city, it was like, low wage, but high benefit. And so, that was like the trade-off. It's like, sweeter benefit package.
What was your question, Bina? I didn't.
Just wondering, like, just to represent that it's not just wage, but it's this package that we put together that,
Yeah,
is an uplift for people.
that will definitely be part of our accounting, so I'm sure that you'll have that.
Probably not until after a year.
Yeah, not till after.
So after a year, I mean, I think we will present to them the total compensation package, which covers the value of your insurance and all those different things. I think it would be difficult. It's impossible for us to calculate right now without seeing the insurance costs, which we don't have yet.
It's probably what, 25% plus a base, the additional compensation, is it?
No, not healthcare is not 25%, but yeah, so,
I'm talking
About
about
everything.
everything.
Right.
When you cost an employee their salary, say it's 50, they're 125% of that.
The library will be closing in 10 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
La biblioteca se cerrará en 10 minutos.
You can get
Por
the switch
favor,
installed.
concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
So the formula the city uses is 35%.
35.
So it's 35% above wage is
Yeah.
basically the cost of your total compensation package. That number has not appeared yet to me to be wrong. We don't have the healthcare cost yet, but I've got an idea of what they're going to be.
Yeah.
And I think probably 35% is right about, it's between 35 and 40. So the total compensation package is about 35 to 40% of onto the top of your actual wage.
But people don't care about that. I get paid.
If I understood Benita's question, I think, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but you were asking more, is there a way that we can say, look, the way we've structured this deal, you're saving this on deductibles, you're saving this, you're getting access to this. So there is a dollar value associated with the non-dollar items that are in this chart that may actually bring it above the city's package, even taking into account minimum wage. I think that's where we're going. And maybe we don't have the numbers, but if there is a way of articulating that, I think it would be helpful, because based on what I've seen, I think that's true.
We could ask everybody to print out their total compensations package, and then at the end of 1 year of the district, print out your total compensation package. And if we don't beat it, we guarantee that we will. That's a way to make it meaningful. I don't know if you guys are willing to go that far. I feel 99% confident that will be true. That we will beat the total compensation package that the city provides to them currently. I believe it. But I don't have data. And I won't have data until a year's gone by. But yeah, if you want to make a commitment,
Your money back.
I think we can honor it. I think we can honor it.
But you're talking about also, Benita, like monetizing, like if you took 3 days of pet leave, that would be worth this much. you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Right, the additional access to leave, additional access to healthcare.
Bring in your puppy. Gotta see it.
That may be a way for you to frame part of the discussion like, that we believe, but we don't know yet. And they're going to want to see the proof, right? And we don't have the proof right now, so I don't know.
But the other piece of this, of course, is things like that, the 3 days of leave and your pet are a non-monetary benefit to them, but it's a cost to the district. And they need to understand that that's the trade-off too. So there's a non-monetary value with some of these things that improves their quality of life a lot. They don't see it as a dollar in their paychecks, but we see it in the budget. And that's the way we're trying to balance this, I think.
How much more time do we have on?
It's important, Doug.
Yeah, it's very important. Covering.
The meeting on the 12th, we can attend, right?
Sure.
I think if we attend, it becomes a public meeting.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that's why we're just limiting it to these two. Because I think then we have to notice it if the rest of us come.
So what's the problem with that?
It's only whether or not you're going to solicit the best feedback you can from the city by making it about the staff.
And do you think, so just say more about that there'll be,
Should we advertise to the public and the public shows up? I don't know how that's going to temper staff's degree of willingness to be honest about their own self-interest. I mean, because that is what we're asking to be doing is September 12th. Is I want them to be absolutely honest about their own self-interest. How does this benefit affect them and their life? And so if you're inviting the public into that meeting, I'm not sure you'll have the same results. I think some of them will share honestly what you think. I think we're more likely to get an honest opinion with neither Sam or Jen or me in the room, right? But that feedback, we're setting up an anonymous channel for them. And I'm assuring them that they will have plenty of opportunity to give direct feedback to the board. I will share with you the comments that they send in, right? But yeah, the public meeting is intended to be a gesture of good grace. And it was very well received last time, right? It really was. Even by the majority of people who did not speak, they appreciated the fact that you guys showed up. Over there.
so is there any consideration of it being public? I'm just thinking about like just the environment that we're in and are we going to get, when will a public meeting?
The library will be closing in 5 minutes.
Thinking about
Please complete your library business and exit the building.
the budget.
Just speaking personally, I would like,
La biblioteca se cerrará en 5 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
I'd like the budget process to be as public as we can realistically make it. This, I agree with David, people might be circumspect in their comments or withhold comment if they see members of the public there. I don't know if they would be open to it being recorded so the other trustees could listen, but I don't think we want to make it a public.
So are there any issues if it's recorded? It just,
Typically do record them, so that anyone that can't attend can watch it later.
So the question about whether or not we would release it to the board is a question that you would have to ask me that you request that. And I think make it known, whatever, not of 5 or whatever it is you want to do. You have to make that known. We would need to announce that at the beginning of the meeting that this is a taped conversation, not simply for the benefit of your coworkers, but for the board to listen and hear what you're saying. And then that's fine. And then we do it. But I'm not going to do it without notifying them.
do you want a motion related to that?
If you want to make one.
So I move that the meeting on September 12th with employees that will be sort of co-chaired and convened by Jen and Sam be recorded so that trustees can review the tape following the meeting to be informed of employees' positions and any considerations related to the budget.
For a second.
Oh, I'll second that. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So question, legal question, Kim, is that if we have that, does that become horrible?
I think so. I'd have to research that a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it is. It's a public record that you have access to.
Personally, I would rather rely on subcommittee getting the comments to us rather than being in a position where employees feel like their faces and names can be put together with specific things.
My concern too.
Would it be horrible regardless of whether we've had access to it or not? I think it would be, probably,
Since you're taping it.
yeah.
Yep.
We're asking, we probably should have gone anyway.
When are employees, I mean, it's a conversation, right? So they're not like, it's not hearing like, they're not identifying themselves by name or it's just conversational, right? So you don't even know.
If you're looking at the
Who's
audio,
saying
you
what?
may not know who's talking here.
It's a transcription,
Yeah,
that identifying.
yeah, because people are in that. So it's just recording the meeting and it's not Mary Smith or, asking the question
Which I
about.
think Jen said they were gonna do it anyway, is that right? Did I-
We
Yeah,
do
they do
Yeah.
for our staff
just have
chats.
staff.
Well, I think that it's a public record regardless if there's 3 of us there or 2 of us there. If someone wanted it, they could get it, right? I think that's right.
Kind of awkward for a trustee to make a Cora request for it.
No, I don't.
No, I know, but I'm not saying though, if you guys don't pass the motion, then that's what I would be doing.
No, I don't think you would need to, though. I think you could just request it and, well,
I think they're fully cognizant. I mean,
okay,
we all are fully cognizant of being in a public environment. I think they
I
understand.
think that's my point is that if you vote on this or not, you can get the document if you want. So
Well, he just said
No, I-
before that it would take 5 of us to request that.
Whatever, and not, I just need you to say that's what you want me to do and I'll do it. And I'll make it as light as I can and say, like, if the board wants to, the rest of the board will see this, we'll put a positive spin on it. The rest of the board will watch this on videotape.
yeah, I think that's fine with me. I mean, so,
I don't know how it will temper. Like I said, that's my only concern.
but I think that they would, my point about that is that it could be accessible to the public no matter what. So, because it's recorded, it's a public record, and regardless of our vote or not, someone could get it. That was my.
Attention, the library is now closed. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Atención. La biblioteca está cerrada. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy y esperamos verlos nuevamente.
My primary concern is just not putting out a public notice saying we're going to have this meeting for the employees to comment on this. That tends to be inviting people. Having it in here, having it as an internal
Yeah.
document that people can listen. I mean, that makes sense. It's fine.
Yeah, so we need to vote on that. We had a motion and a vote, so.
So let's vote so we can move on.
Yeah.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, so I'm gonna move on to the rest of the presentation. So it mainly covers healthcare, which we do not know. I can tell you that, I think we will know, that like within a week or so, we'll have a prices on healthcare. So far, what we're seeing is, it looks good, right? It looks good to have an approved enhanced package and a slightly improved package from healthcare and for it to be affordable for us. Arrow, we reinstated, that's 15% of their pay and was the primary thing that came through on the survey. The leave benefits and expanded definitions of how we use them covers briefly just some of the things for eligibility for sick leave, what a family member is, and calling it, and I'm sure they'll go through a period of 2 or 3 years where we're calling it PTO vacation, but ultimately it's not, you don't have to have a scheduled vacation to use this time. You can use it on long-term notice, short-term notice, and can use it for any purpose that you want. A number of other additional paid and unpaid leaves, including obviously FMLA. We're offering unpaid leave of absence for an educational or career benefit. And then we're making that clear in the policy. Rewards and recognition program, we did at Jen's recognition move the outline of the program from the handbook because I think it's subject to change over the course of time. But it is intended to give, cash, time off, and gift cards and public recognition for outstanding performance and exemplary demonstration of the library values. And this says the board has agreed. Sam and Jen have agreed to recommend that we continue to push this amount of money so that it is meaningful. So the city had a rewards and recognition program. They didn't call it rewards and recognition. It existed for a long time. I was not made aware of it for probably at least the first 4 or 5 years I was here at the organization. We did not typically do it. We started to do it, but they were pretty small. I think 500 would be a major one. I think what we're talking about with Sam and Jen is like a lot more than that. Meaningful money that people would get as a reward for having done something exemplary. And so maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000, they would get an annual bonus, they get a recognition. And also building in regular recognition programs so that we're doing something monthly or quarterly so that people are getting recognition. This program falls under the staff development budget that we've already tentatively scheduled in for a significant increase in funding, but it would be drawing.
Could I just add here really quickly?
Yep.
One of the things I think is important to mention here is that having a meaningful rewards and recognition program, particularly for performance, offsets what is kind of the major criticism of a pay leveling scheme, which is to say that employees will say, well, if I'm going to get the same amount as everyone else, what incentive do I have to work harder or do more than I'm sort of tasked with? And having rewards and recognition, and obviously this needs to be built out quite a bit more, but having meaningful rewards and recognition sort of closes that gap a little bit, or it sort of addresses employees' concerns about it. So, and there's sort of data to show that, right? Because pay leveling can be like a little bit decentivizing. I don't know what the word is, but I think you understand what I mean. So I just want to point that out. Part of the reason that slide is kind of there is so that we can address, I think, if an employee has a concern about that, we have an answer to that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Jen, I totally am sensitive to that argument because I believe it to be true, and it's true in my experience as well. It's like some employees are more productive than others and take higher risks and do more amazing things, and it's not marginal, right? It is not. They are 10% more productive. They're 12% more productive. I mean, there's good data that shows some employees are at least 400% more productive than other employees in an organization. So, I can tell you that the merit system that we have has not acknowledged that. I think you're a robust rewards and recognition program that does have meaningful money attached to it will be able to kind of put some recognition to that. The next page is the paid time off. And this is where you'll see probably the most significant increase in amount of time. And it starts from day one, which was one of our basic principles, was to have the best benefits we could from day one. That's both an acknowledgement around what it looks like to retain good employees, but also acknowledgement that we're going to be hiring about 30 or 40 employees in 2024. And we want to be an attractive thing. So you can see, or in the outset from day one, like the earnings on vacation for what had been BMEA, it's almost double, right? So I mentioned, I think earlier, that we have had 3 BMEA staff read the handbook. There were no negative comments. There was a lot of smiles and appreciation for the work that they do. And I think this is partly just a consequence of building a system that has one plan of benefits for everyone. It, by its own nature, just leveling the field between BMEA and management, and gives a vast increase for benefits to the BMEA. It carries through. It also shows in this one, comparison libraries. So we are in excess really after the 5th year of everyone, and then carrying that on forward. So this is a central part of this plan. It is to acknowledge that when we did the survey, and we had no idea how it was going to play out. Like, do you want PTO or do you want maintain sick and vacation time? Half the staff said PTO and half the staff said I want to maintain sick and vacation time. This is an attempt to find the right compromise. Had we put sick at 48, we might have been able to go another week on vacation time at every single level, but I don't think that would have really worked for us very well either. This is a kind of a balance, but you earn more vacation time with the Boulder Public Library District than you've earned with any other competing library in the area, and more than you do with the city. The only exception to that is when you are a management level employee, and I believe it's you pass your 20-year marker, and you could have earned more vacation time with the city. That's the only exception.
So to Panita's point, this is a place where there is very tangible increased value, especially to those low-level employees who aren't necessarily making their minimum wage or their fair wage. Can't talk anymore. So, I mean, this is the sort of thing to call out when you're trying to help them see why we think this is a better package.
Is it worthwhile to maybe come up with like an example or two of like, you know, if you're an employee and you make X amount of, you know, you would have received this amount under the city and under the old plan and under the new plan, you would receive this amount. So you have like a dollar figure to kind of look at.
Run that by me again and we'll see if Jennifer understands, because I'm not sure.
I'm wondering if it's worthwhile to have like an example with a dollar figure. So maybe just pull out some average employee and then figure out what would they have earned dollar wise under the city, and then what would they earn dollar wise under the libraries.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. I mean, numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe even one of the 18 to say, you know, this is what you would be earning in salary and this is what you'd be earning in vacation. But with the library district, this is what you'd be earning and this is what your vacation, it's going to be a better number for the library side. So that kind of comparison, I think, would be helpful. At least have it in your pocket so you can speak to it.
Can we add in hours to this, just so we know that we are talking about 160 hours, 200 hours, just someplace, not to each one, but comparison with other organizations by hours or in hours, yeah. The other reference that might bring it to a level that people could relate to and would be to look at it by pay period, like what's earned by pay period.
And that is included I
That's
believe, in the handbook.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But
I guarantee you that the staff will recognize themselves in these numbers, and I can guarantee you that the BMEA notice a marked difference in the amount of hours that they're getting. And that really was just, we wanted to increase the benefit, we wanted to provide PTO, and it's one policy for everybody, right? And so the way in which the city's policy currently works, I think BMEA has 13 different steps you can go through, and I believe management has 8 that you grade up through over the course of time. And yeah, if you're BMEA, yeah, I don't think you earn much more than 88 until 5 years. So it's 2 weeks in a day or 4 weeks. I mean, and I think that's apparent to everybody. Nobody said like, wow, that's great. But we've only had 3 BMEA read that package.
So I know this is really important, but we do have a big agenda tonight, so I think we can keep moving through.
Yeah, so the sick leave is proposed here. We talk it through. We do not provide a table that we decided to eliminate accrued vacation hours and rollover. This is something that I think Sam and Jen are both, and I think it's wise to do so. The proposal that the city has made in the, of course, the IGA, we just want to touch on that the city's proposal is to pay out the entirety of their vacation time for all employees in their last day. And that the board will honor all of those hours should that employee turn the check over to the district, regardless of whatever tax has been taken out. So we would honor then whatever hours they were being paid out for, and they could put that into their bank of accrued vacation time up to 320 hours at the beginning of their employment for the library district, which is what the majority of staff want. They want their vacation to roll over, as they discussed it. The second part is that on the sick leave rollover, which is the next one, it would be, yeah, please.
I think you need to make sure that they know they will be paying taxes on that check.
Yeah.
So that's not in the slides.
And
But we
it's
won't,
also a benefit that we're giving them, right?
It's a benefit
In
that
terms,
we
yeah,
can get, yes.
so that's, we need to.
And technically, if they roll it over and they've paid the taxes the first time, when they use it again later, they're gonna pay taxes again. So, yeah, so.
to a certain extent, but we're honoring the hours that they have pre-tax for the hours that they get. And then in fact, they're being granted hours at a new wage. So the cash value of it actually goes up as well by roughly probably $2 an hour.
So it's the best compromise we can do, but again, it's another example of why this package financially is better for them.
And again, the BMEA are capped at, I believe, 240 or 260 in total accrued hours of vacation. This moves that cap to 320, so a full 2 weeks more.
You're still gonna have that 320 cap,
Well, if 320 cap.
even if you roll over.
Management currently has a 320 cap. Yeah, but BMEA just has a 240 cap, and so their cap will go up. That piece we carry over. The maximum any BMEA employee could have would be 240 hours. Say we get paid out by the city, they would then turn that over, if they chose to turn that check over to the library district, we would honor 240 hours, not the amount of their dollars that they're giving.
Right, I get it,
Yeah.
but they need to start taking them off if they're gonna start. But they're also, you're allowing for 20% of their sick leave to be.
Yeah, so vacation time is not a problem. I don't see an issue with people taking vacation currently. They're not getting a whole lot. That was my experience when I got here. I was like, wow, we don't get much vacation because I got 88 hours of too. Like that's how everybody starts out at 88.
Right.
And that's
So-
year 1 through 4.
I think it starts with management they start to diverge. Like at year 3, they start to diverge. Management starts to earn at a higher rate. And then by year 5, then it's another thing. Then BMEA is on a different step level. I think they have like, it's 9 to 13 different steps that you go through where you begin to earn leave at a higher rate. For management, it's only, I think, 6 or 7 different steps that you go through where you reach longevity milestones where you begin to earn a higher rate. So no, then the next part of the proposal is the big one, which is like, it doesn't have an immediate cash value, but it does translate a non-cash value benefit, sick time, that has unlimited accrual with the city. And Sam and Jen are proposing that we roll over 20% of that accrued sick leave to become vacation time in the district. So that would mean there are probably at least a dozen employees who have in excess of 500 hours of sick time. So in other words, they are going to roll over enough in this transfer to have ample vacation time to start out with the district. When they get that check to pay out their vacation time from the city, they're going to cash, right? So they are getting cashed out and then plus having some level of rollover for vacation time. There is one employee, which I just have my duty to mention, there is one employee who will have more time and 20% rollover than what is allowed. So if we roll over 20%, she'll have more than 320 hours of vacation time. If we roll over her 2,000 some hours of accrued sick time. So I have spoken with her. She has absolutely no concerns. She's grateful and realizes she probably ought to schedule some vacations. That's great. Yeah. And then I think that's the last slide. Are we okay to move forward with this? Because Sam and Jen would like to do the 20% rollover as a part of the September 12th presentation. It is I think staff will perceive it as a major win. I think it is a major win. Like they don't specifically just get to.
Do we have any concerns for any of this tonight from what we've seen? I mean, I think it's a great package. I thought so when we went through it the last time and yeah.
That's giving them something that's a gift.
Yeah,
That's very generous.
And it responds to those who may still feel like something is being taken away. Right.
you know, and thank you for all the hard work you put into thinking this through. I think it's a great package. I wish it were mine.
Right. I mean,
You get every day off, except for when.
I do.
it really just allow us to like back up the statements we've made about how the staff is important to us. So,
I think it's great. And thank you also for being willing to lead the discussion and all of that kind of stuff too. So thanks for both of you.
The next item is me too, I think, right?
I'm sorry?
The next item is me as well. The tax assessor, the assessor sent us the estimated values for.
And so this document is
page 44.
in the front, yeah, it's page 44.
And so it's great news, right? Like it is the top figure is the $5 billion. That is the total taxable, assessed, commercial and residential property, agricultural land within the district. That was what it was in 2023. The 2024 number jumps to 6.5 billion. That is roughly a 30% increase. So we are looking at, this is not in any way, shape, or form fitting into any historical model. We had assumed a large number, so that the amount that we assumed was between 12 and 15% in the model, and we had showed you that data. So that meant our budget jumped from roughly $17.5 million this year, or $17 million this year, to around $19.5 million in 2024. But now that we see an estimate of 30%, that budget jumps from $17.5 million to about $22.5 million. So it's it doubles what the increase we anticipated was. But yeah, I wanted you to be aware of this. I think it does change the modeling somewhat, where as you previously, if you remembered when we looked at the model and the financial committees looked at the model, we with all of these things that we're doing, we projected to be in the red. Everything else remains normal. We'd be in the red within 8 years. But that's not how the model looks now. In fact, we have ample room to do everything that you've talked about in terms of addressing the backlog in a short and aggressive timeline, in terms of purchasing a building in Gun Barrel, replacing Meadows, looking at even remodeling the Reynolds Library, probably within the next 10 to 15 years. All of those things are well within your grasp. If nothing else, if the model resumes normal in 2 years, right? So the model is predicated on 50-year historical averages that we have, and this is way out of the norm. It's not ever happened in Boulder. The largest increase that happened in history was over the course of 3 cycles, and that is equivalent to about 30%. And that was the years right after the Great Recession. So 2010, 12, and 14, that was a 14%, 10%, and then 10%.
So to put this in some context too, because you and I have talked about this, David, that of that 6.5 billion in property tax value, 50% of that roughly is commercial. And 60% of that commercial is out of state investors. So when we think about the tax burden and who this is hitting on, the image that people always try to raise is, well, we have the poor couple who purchased a house 40 years ago. That part of the demographic is now 10% or a little bit less. So I think that's something just for us to keep in mind when we get into these conversations with Proposition HH and some of those kinds of things about, should we be lowering mill levies? Should we be doing that? But the bulk of this is on folks who are actually not even folks in Colorado and frankly are putting their money here in part because the property taxes are so low. So that's a conversation for another time, but I thought it was worth sort of framing that right now as we think about it. My personal sense is, this is a windfall that's probably once in a lifetime. I think it's a great time to pick up that investment conversation and say, what are we going to do with that so we can put this to work?
But
yeah, put this to work in the library. So, and the other thing I'll just mention while we're here, as I think maybe you don't all know, the city attorneys have sent back a draft IGA. We're just parking it right now because they sent it to us and said, yeah, we're still working on it. So we agreed it isn't worth putting a whole lot of time and energy into that until they get the rest of their changes. But one of the things in the IGA is that they're asking for repayment in full within the first year, 2 payments. So I don't know that that's necessarily where they're stuck, but I looked at that and said, well, they've looked at the property tax increase as well. Just so you know.
Yeah, and I will, the finance committee has asked for a better breakdown of the tax base in Boulder. We're truly in a very enviable position as far as library districts around the state are concerned, in that, you know, it's a 50-50 split between residential and commercial property. And, you know, whether we're willing to fully frame try to reframe part of the narrative around that happens during the election in every tax instance, where it's not insubstantial for that mom and pop who bought their home 40 years ago, but it's not a full story, and it's certainly not the reality of what Boulder has a viable commercial real estate market. It is, if you read the Denver Business Journal, which I do, it's like, you know, it's popping and setting records every single year in terms of commercial real estate value. And it's not some local person in Boulder that's buying it. It's real estate investment groups from Texas and from California and from Asia and all over the place that are buying up commercial real estate. That fortunately is 50% of our revenue every year. And, you know, whatever decisions we make, they will pay the bulk of it. And if there's a break, they will bear the benefit of that break. I'm not sure they'll notice.
So now is the next thing to talk through these example infographics.
Yeah, it wasn't on the agenda. I didn't know where you want to talk about. You asked for us to bring back some samples. This is really a random set of samples of kind of like infographics. I'm not even sure this is before, but we did. Jamie Kopke, who you met earlier, went to a data conference a couple months ago. She pulled some things from the data representations of library information. We then looked at more online, but it kind of gives you an idea of how. And I'm curious to see if you have a feeling one way or another, if like any of these is maybe a direction you would like for us to pursue when we bring you back an initial reading of the budget. We plan to present it also in a visual way, mostly for the highlights, right? That's the difference. The plan, I believe, is for us to present highlights of the budget in a legible format rather than trying to represent the overall budget, which I don't think you can do better than a simple spreadsheet, which is what we're intending to do.
I would say for me, there were two that stood out as possible. A lot of them I just thought were way too busy.
Yep.
And so for me, the second, sort of this one, I thought
I like
it
that.
had some potential. It was simple, it's big chunks, you know, it's a more sophisticated version of the pie chart. See, and I thought the one right after that had some potential also. And in my ideal world, I don't know if that's something we can do this year, but in my ideal world, I'd love to see something in one of those formats. And then each section would be a hot link that you could dive down into more information. And for that, some of these others might be useful. This one, this top 10, I thought was interesting. I think this is what's changed this year or something like that. But I
John,
think making that top as clean as possible. Yeah.
Could you say what pages are the ones you're
sorry.
showing? That's okay.
Well, they don't have page numbers.
Oh, you
on
don't have
them,
page
so
numbers?
I'm looking
Okay.
at,
Alexandria, Virginia, one of them.
yeah, EBRPSS releases budget infographics. This EBR one
Okay,
is one. It's
Yeah.
and then the next one after that are the two that really stood out for me.
okay,
53.
Well, that one too, yeah, 52.
Okay. Thank you.
That was me. I saw Sylvia nodding, so I just think like. Any other feedback? Please. You've got experience. in
Just a
this, so-
voice from the foundation side as a general comment. I think you're in a transitionary period with your whole marketing, branding, everything, which hopefully gets way more advanced than it's ever been. That's going to take time. So I don't have anything to say about this. I just have a general comment that the Library Foundation has done work on this side for itself, and we would love to be collaborators with the library. You know, there's all sorts of advantage to having complementary, robust graphics is but an expression of a well-developed brand. I just generally want to say that we're really looking forward to being partners with the library as you all basically tell the community what you offer. The foundation reinforces for the community the value of what their investment is doing for them and their neighbors.
Great, Chris, thank you. Any other feedback on these infographics?
Simpler is better from my perspective.
Which simpler is better? Nobody liked where the money goes, like I bet.
I like that one, but
You know, I was looking for something that just, you know, sort of simply said, like, here's where we were with the city budget and in this transition, you know, we're going here.
This one,
And I was still looking, yeah,
I like that. Yeah. That's simple. Sorry, I didn't.
it's okay. So still looking for something, you know, that just offered that, because I think it's important to just reflect the city's investment and, you know, as a reference point and what's changed and where it's going, but I didn't see a place where that sort of fit with any of these without just creating another little graphic, like if you were using the EBR PSS one.
But it might need to be a different graphic, because I
Yeah.
think they're two different stories, right? One is a story of here's our budget, and the other one is here's the comparison of where we were from where we were, so.
We can certainly compare the apples to where there's apples. It's difficult, as you know, to compare the things that are internal cost allocation. We have the estimates, but I'm not sure that we know, you know, what, we don't have expenses. I think the city could probably provide that. We're not asking, I don't know that you're all asking, so wherein that question is entry, you know, that was made an item in the election as well, is like, scales, you know, and economies of scale. And so there was a savings by having it all under one roof. Question is then service levels you get, which that's not a tangible question you put in. People will see it when they see it, right? The building's better taken care of.
A very confusing point in the election, because we had these two different baselines, you know, and that was part of what created so much furor in the community, because the city shows that it spends $9 to $10 million on the library, but it really spends 13, right? So is the library budget really going up by 100%? You know, as Bob Yates said, no, you know, it's a tricky one to do. One thing that did come to my mind today as we were talking about facilities, I think one of the areas we want to make sure we call out in the budget and in the annual report is the facilities portion. That's not something that appears now because it's in cost allocation, but it's such a big part of our budget. And I think being able to say, here's what we're spending the money on, here's what we're doing with the money, that will also go a long way to address these community concerns that have been stirred up about us not being good stewards of the building.
Yeah. Other feedback on the images? We'll give them to our designer, graphic designer, and Jamie Kopke, and they'll work through some stuff with real numbers that we have in the budget. Tentatively, we won't fully have that. And we could bring back another sample to you that what it might look like in a, try to at least in a couple of ways. I don't know how hard it is to do this. I'm not a graphic designer. I have no clue. Like, but Alyssa will tell us like how complex this is. I'm sure she's capable.
I would make one comment on this one. And the thing I didn't like about where our money goes as opposed to the other one is that it's money bigger than the what. So the type, you know, what you're spending your money on is a tiny type relative to the dollar amount. And it seemed to me like that should be switched.
I agree with that.
The format was fine, but that was why that one didn't.
The money is in large font and the subject is small.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, yeah.
No, interesting.
I think we're talking about programs and services, you know, how that's being spread out, not.
We'll bring you back something. I don't think it's gonna be perfect. I will just admit it. Terrible weakness. I have difficulty reading any of these. I don't find, it's not highly legible. And but you know, some of them more so than others, but I think you guys could provide some insight as we progress, right? Like you make this better and better. Thank you very much. I do want to make one other editorial comment before we move on, if I may. I think it's important for you guys to recognize, I know you are all wonderful people and kind and gentle and have very thoughtful conversations. You know, I want for you to at least, think a little bit about power imbalance that you have with regard to staff, right? And so all of these discussions are highly sensitive discussions, which is about a person's livelihood and their personhood. You are going to find out over the course of the next month that, like, by law, there are some uncomfortable things we're going to have to do. We have to repost everybody's job. Everybody has to reapply, right? All of these things are going to happen. Like, none of these things are comfortable necessarily. Staff are not going to love any of them. But going into those conversations, clearly understanding your role as the fiscal agents of the library and the policy making board, there is a huge power imbalance, which I assure you, they are all fully aware of. I would like for you to be somewhat aware of those imbalances as well when you bring yourself to bear. Like, you can acknowledge it in a way that's easy. You can be friendly, all those things, but I can assure you it's not lost on them. And so you will get respect and deference at every probably turn and or anger, whichever it happens to be, that you deserve. But it is about that imbalance, which is something that there's not anything we can really do about it.
Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, thanks. All right, any subcommittee reports? Oh, I'm sorry, we have the public participation rules here first. So let me just do a quick tee up of this. So last week, we took the first look at the public participation rules as the Library Commission has adopted them. I heard from 5 people that folks were generally okay with that format. In our meeting last week, Benita effectively asked, can we change it from second person to third person? So instead of saying you, go to more impersonal, and people in the room were comfortable with that. So Benita sent me a markup with that. I made those changes, and those changes do not show up in the track changes in here. It was just too busy. But there were, so that is the one change that's already been made. There were some substantive changes that were proposed by Benita and some by me. I thought we should talk about those and work those through, and that's what's before you in this document tonight. So is there anything you want to add to that, Benita, before we dive in?
No, I think for me, I want to see a policy document, like sort of related to how we handle public comment. And so I think there's just going to be a lot of future scrutiny related to that. So, and I think there's something like this. And then I think there's a user-friendly, you do this, or you can do that, a different type of document for the general public. But I just wanted to see something that was just more focused on like a policy or the role that we have in this.
So if we just walk through these, I think most of them are very straightforward. Some of them are just questions. The first one, the existing policy talks about Board of Trustee meetings generally held the third Tuesday of the month at various libraries. It has been a policy to circulate around to the branches. I think it probably makes sense to continue doing that, but I thought it was worth checking with you guys.
It had been a policy of the commission.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I did not remove this because I thought that might be something this board wanted to continue to do. Next one, the previous one talked about identifying the board secretary, and it was just confusing as to who was doing what. So I just changed it to say a sign-up sheet is available without saying who did it. And then speakers are encouraged to sign up in advance. Again, that was a reworking of kind of getting out of the awkwardness of what was there before. So if those are fine. each individual speaker will be given up to 3 minutes, and then there's this total of 60-minute maximum. And Benita, you had a proposed change on this one that I couldn't read. It was a little bit confusing because the Library Commission's policy says 3 minutes up to a maximum, and the numbers didn't total, and I didn't know if that's where you were going. So I think the question for us is, do we want to say we have a maximum of 60 minutes of public comment?
I would just, I mean, I just think it just depends on the meeting and the agenda and what's there. You know,
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, that's it.
I would prefer to set a specific amount rather than it by ear. I think that makes it clear for everybody. And and we have other business to do. And so you spent an hour listening. If you want to go as far as the school board does, that policy states after 1 hour, we do our business, but we'll return to public comment at the end of the meeting. And a couple of times that happened, and it makes for a long meeting. I'm not recommending that, but that's, if you really want to go more than an hour, I'd prefer that than something that kind of shifts from meeting to meeting.
I think what I had, I didn't bring my notes, it was at the discretion of the president or something like that.
Well, I think that's
number one, yeah.
address 3. So the board president may lengthen or shorten the total time allotted as appropriate. So it seemed to me we had that flexibility built in.
Yeah, this just seemed like a long time for public comment, like just without it aligned with like sort of agenda planning in advance. That would be really odd to me.
Do you think 60 minutes is too much?
Well, I don't think we should tie any time to that it could be, shaped by the agenda of the meeting or, what's.
The problem I think what we would encounter is if, let's say we, as a board, agree with some public comment and we lengthen a lot of time to be able to talk about it, and then we disagree with some area of public comment, and so we shortened it. So there could be prejudice, there could be people that perceive a bias of freedom of speech based on the content of the public comment. Does that make sense? And so if we just say 60, and I mean, you participated, it starts to repeat itself after about 5 speakers, right? So I think we would capture, and people could always submit written comments, unlimited. So I don't know, I think I'm okay with it. I just don't want it to be perceived as we're prejudicing certain speech over other speech.
I just say that there may be a total of 60 minutes.
Well, the number 3, I think, addresses that.
Yeah. So I probably just wanted to cut it out to be cleaner with everything else, but I'm fine with that staying in there.
Okay. So number 4, I think this is where the math problem came up. We say people can pool their time, but then we take a minute away. So do we want it to be pooled at 6 minutes or 5? I wasn't quite sure what the commission is trying to say here. 2 or more people may pool time up to 5 minutes, but if you have 2 people, that's 6 minutes of time. If you have more than 2 people, of course, it would be 9 minutes of time. So are we saying people can't speak more than 5 minutes, even if they pool time? That just didn't make any sense.
I'd say people can pool time up to 6 minutes or something.
So 2 people may pool time of up to 6 people. That's up to 6
I
minutes.
say you could pool time, or do you want to say like 20 people could sign up and pool the whole hour? Or could you say, no matter what, you can't pool more than 9 minutes or something like that?
I'm asking.
Yeah, I
I'm not
know,
proposing.
That's what I took from that. So.
Why would anybody pool time if, as an individual, you have up to 3 minutes?
Exactly. If you lose time by pooling time, it doesn't seem like sense. Okay.
It's a matter of delivering a,
Well, it's
statement from a.
it could be, it's also you could play it, like I could go sign up 20 people, pool the whole 60,
Right.
and no one else would be able to speak.
So I think the intent here was to say two people can pool time.
Yeah,
So you can expand your time to 5 or 6 minutes,
yeah.
right? So.
Yeah.
6 minutes,
So I think 6 minutes is fine.
yeah,
Then we're
Yeah.
the even numbers. of-
yeah, and the
of
math
speakers.
works.
The math works.
Yeah, and two people.
And two people, so we'll take the or more, okay, great. Number 5, this is one that, Benita, you had proposed removing, if officially representing an interest group, homeowners association, et cetera, state that for the record as well. I was wondering, did you have a concern about that? I mean, I don't know that it's gonna be an issue from us as much as it is for city, but
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't seem needed for this group. I mean, I think people would if they were, you know,
The only thing that crossed my mind when I read that section was the fact that like the book banning that's happening right now. I mean, that's actually being led by like only a handful of groups and not actually individuals. And so in my mind, if someone was going to get up and talk about that subject, I would want to know that they were from a group, not speaking as an individual. That's kind of where I was thinking. I read
Fine,
it.
like, People can identify themselves.
yeah, I guess I thought if,
yeah.
yeah,
So should we take out the
And then-
homeowners association, because that.
Yeah, maybe that
probably
was
is relevant to us, and so if officially representing an interest group,
and what
state that,
like constitutes officially,
so just representing an interest group, state that for the record as well. Okay.
It'd be like Jonathan Singer coming and presenting on behalf of the chamber.
Yeah. So 6, again, this was something that the Library Commission had, I think, to try to keep people from just complaining and actually doing something constructive. Do we want to ask people to try to make a solution, or just let them say whatever they want to say?
I think you let people say what they want to say, that's my, and it was that whole you thing that I was cutting out of there too.
But I mean, this could be restated to
Yeah.
get rid of the youth, so that was the substance. that I
I'd
was-
say delete, like,
Yeah,
And who judges the
Yes.
constructive problem resolution?
yep, okay, that one's gone.
We could put please in here in a bunch of places. So it doesn't seem so much like an order, you know, like, please be clear and concise. Please let us know if you're representing, I'm sorry, I'm just.
But it's like the you stuff then too. That's what I'm saying, like that user-friendly piece could be a separate document. But this is sort of like just the ground rules of our policy, right?
So 7, I added this was a rewrite of what was there before. Written materials may be submitted to the board in advance meeting through the contact form.
that's
I
great.
assume that's fine. And then this last one, again, your comment was cut off, Anita, and you and I might have both been saying, I don't understand what's trying to be said here. There was a thing about
Which one are you on, 9 or 10?
10, subsequent, you can follow up in a subsequent meeting by participating in public comments or contacting. It seems like that's obvious, but
Yeah, I don't know if you need to do that, but it might, it's an invitation. So
I mean, I probably just ended it after the, meeting.
yeah, which
Yeah.
frankly is what I would do.
Yeah.
Everybody else too? Okay, great. So do we want to put pleases in here? Make it more friendly?
Well, I would suggest that. I mean, it seems a little bit more welcoming, but
I would suggest a different document for speakers. If you want to address the Board of Trustees meeting. Yeah. Just some bullet points about these things, and then some of the you stuff could come back into it.
I tend to think we should just keep it as simple as possible, like,
yeah.
yeah, the less, things do tend to get confused when you have multiple, like, oh, refer to this document, like, the less bureaucracy we can create, I guess I'm more in favor of that.
So I'm hearing you say we should just have one document that we give to speakers. So then the question is, do we say please to the speakers in this document?
No, I don't think you need to.
Okay.
Two in the first paragraph in one place. We do have please in the first paragraph.
So
Please strive to follow these procedural rules. So it's their ones.
Okay.
So on number 9, though, it's, there's the you in there. If you have prepared a written statement, so if you could just adjust that.
Sure.
I like you shall
So
or you shall not, because that's very clear
It is.
about what.
It is.
It is. So as a lawyer,
Oh.
you say you may do something. That means I.
May is always
may not.
problematic.
Very
Okay, so here's a rewrite of
little
9.
time. Understand what we need to do. Sorry.
Here's a rewrite of 9. The board receives communications electronically, but 8 copies of written statement may be given to the board at the meeting. Okay, great. Now, do you need to see a clean copy of this before we vote on it, or do you want me just to make the changes? You're comfortable in voting tonight, with changes to follow? Pretty comfortable? Okay, can we have a motion to approve then?
I move to approve this.
Favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. I'll get those changes back to you then. All right, legal counsel status report, Mr. Kim.
Nothing to add to the status report, except one little thing. I did get a call today from the city attorneys. We don't need to deal with this now because it turned out to be a false alarm, but something did come of it that I think you need to start thinking about. They're going to give notice at some point to the volunteers that they're no longer city volunteers. And we're going to have some kind of process to, do the background checks and all of that in order.
Maybe.
I called back and said, well, wait a minute, when are you gonna do this? Well, we don't know.
So the complication in that is that the city moved to a unified volunteer system a couple of years ago, that the library actually took the library system and the library helped them build it out. And a lot of these volunteers are volunteering in multiple departments. So I think this is something we should propose to the city that we should continue to maintain jointly. It's like what public Wi-Fi. I mean, why would you cut out this wonderful volunteer platform? So that would be my response, is to see if we can go to city management and see if there isn't a way that we can preserve this unified way of doing volunteers rather than this legalistic.
Is it different from Count Me In? Or is it that it's,
It is count me in.
it is Count Me In?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be working really well for people. So why would we break it?
Is it an
Yes,
IGA element?
moved away from it. We had thought we would follow, but no, I don't know. It's,
So if they move away from it, that's an opportunity to move to a system we can both access, right?
I totally agree. Like there are many communities who are looking at like community-wide volunteer cooperative things like this, rather than breaking them up. They're looking at like, how can we put 100 different groups together in one volunteer place? Because volunteers want to volunteer. So it's like they want, and it is close to 30% of the people who volunteer at the library volunteer in some other capacity in the city. We have the largest number.
For the background checks, they're gonna ask that and
Yes.
where we send them.
Who pays for it?
Yeah, like they're gonna ask those questions.
Yeah, because that's, so if you're, I don't think I've had a background check.
Because you don't work with children, so we don't.
So to be continued.
Yes, and my suggestion to them was, let's wait until we figure out when the employees are going to come over. And we'll do it at the same time. And I
Did
didn't,
we put it in the IGA as an element?
I think we could, yeah.
I think that's a place to raise it with
Yeah.
them, certainly.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Just for a side note, you probably are aware, but we rely on volunteers. It's like, it represents about 14% of our entire workforce. A lot of programs do not exist without volunteers. I would hate to just tell them, like, you're getting a severance notice, but we have to have something in place. Because they came to volunteer for the library, whatever it is they wanted to do, they we came here and, we gotta have something. And that, we haven't figured it out, like how we do it if they decide to do this. I don't know. I don't know best.
Well, let's frame the issue for the manager and see if there isn't a different way to handle this, rather than just saying, oh, we've done background checks and we can't release that information. Because that really seems like the tail dragging the dog.
That they have done background checks?
We have done.
We have done, okay.
We have done background checks that they won't release to us.
So does any other department have as many volunteers?
No, and nor as many hours. Open space does a good business in volunteers, but nobody else is even close. I think we've had the most hours for like almost the entire time. And we have a high number of volunteers.
Yeah, if they
Adding in our weekly numbers, but
What's it? It would be nicer if we could invite them to apply to the library district before they get terminated.
Yeah.
Well, if they're
Yeah.
if they're volunteering multiple places, it shouldn't be terminated at all from the system.
That's a city's part.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Just
So to be continued.
talk to them later.
Is that PBSD's volunteers, are they operating in a closed system in our city? I mean, they're not part of Count Me In, I imagine.
No, that's part of
And I know the whole nonprofit ecosystem is all doing their own free range thing.
So the last thing we have to discuss tonight is the response we may or may not want to make to the hotline that was sent out by Councilmember Wallach. I think you all know that the council discussion of ownership and appointments has been bumped forward to the 14th now instead of the 7th. Do we want to have this discussion in executive session? It is technically part of the IGA. Or do we want to have it in an open meeting? I can go either way. And Kim, I don't know if you have a recommendation for us on this one.
Whatever you want.
Today, we do it in an executive session. That's my vote.
Okay,
I'm strong preference.
but if the hotline is in the public domain and it's,
but our response to
yeah,
that is what we're talking about. And it gets to the question in the IGA of ownership or leasing, which will be part of our discussion. Sure. So I think it's both the response to that and the whether we are going to weigh in on ownership or leasing. Okay. Well, should we do executive session then? Somebody want to make the motion for the magic session? Thank you, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Move to executive session. To discuss the leasing. Buying or transferring building.
I'll second.
Okay. So we are going to adjourn from our regular meeting and reconvene. And then adjourn.
And then adjourn.
Jen, do you have your hours for the last 2 weeks that we can capture for you here? The hours you
I'll
spent
email
on
them to you, Jody.
Okay, just send them.
Can I email them to you?
Jennifer Farrar. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging there. No.
Thank you.
Adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
See you, Marty.
Adjourned.
Turn off the recording.
Well, it was longer than usual and we had no laugh. So I'm not sure that's at all a good sign. Usually when you're in executive